Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Your Justice Facebook Live. I think the first time wearing my glasses here, no contacts today. What our goal here is to do is to educate the book community on insurance issues regarding personal injury cases. And today we have an extra special. I'm going to approve this. Sorry for the slowness. We have an extra special guest coming on today. He's going to talk about the mortgage company's perspective about property insurance and having property insurance sufficient when you have a house to make sure that if there's a claim against you as a homeowner and claim your justice is representing a client who's injured on your property, what are we going to do? Then that's how it's going to go. So I'm having talking a little slow. Sorry about that, because I sent out 2 invitations waiting for them to come aboard, and let's just give them a second to come aboard here. If you have any questions in the future about how to handle a accident where you're injured on somebody's property, certainly feel free to reach out to claim your justice. You can reach us at 847-434-3555 or at claimyourjustice.com. I guess I'm going to be going here solo today. So one of the questions would be, when a person purchases a house and the house, they have a mortgage, and the question is, do they need property insurance on that house, liability insurance? And the answer is yes, they need liability insurance, and they need liability insurance because the mortgage company is going to require the house that they're financing is properly protected from claims of personal injury. And they'll have a liability limit on that, and the question is the liability sufficient? So first of all, you have that requirement that there's property insurance on the house. The next question would become, is the property insurance sufficient? Well, generally, for slip and falls that could happen at a person's house or apartment or condo, sometimes the injuries are small, but sometimes the injuries are significant, and they could have value in excess of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I've seen many property homeowners insurance policies that only have a $100,000 limit, which I don't think is sufficient. So the point is that each of you who finance a house, when you go to your company to get insurance, the insurance that you're going to be asking for is homeowners insurance, property and casualty, they call it. And when you get that property and casualty insurance, you're going to have a limit. And your insurance agent's going to want to sell you what he thinks or he or she thinks is an appropriate limit. The extra amount of money to get you coverage is so small in a monthly dollar payment that I recommend you ask for more than the homeowner's insurance agent's going to ask you to try and sell you. So you want to be able to, if they say 100,000, I'd ask for 300,000. And again, the premium on that limit is going to be so small. Each month could be $18 a month, a couple $100 a year for that extra protection. Because here's why. If my client's bitten by your dog and has in the face, let's say, has scars on the face, and you don't have enough insurance, I'm going to be looking for your equity in the house. And when I look for the equity in your house, you're not going to be happy that you didn't have enough insurance to cover the value of the case. So you have $100,000 of insurance. My client has a $250,000 valued injury. I don't want to settle for the $100,000 because that wouldn't be a proper representation of my client. So make sure that when you go buy that policy, you ask for extra insurance. Then as far as the mortgage company is concerned, they don't have a preference for the most part what your limit is. And so they're just going to accept, hey, you have a $100,000 policy. We're okay with that. We don't think anything's going to happen beyond that. And we're okay. This is about the protection of you as a homeowner, to protect you from my client's claim where they tripped on a stair that wasn't properly secured, or a handrail broke free and they broke a leg or broke a hip or broke a shoulder. So it's important to have that extra insurance. The next question has, what would I do for my client? We've talked about that a little bit, But the first thing I want to do is I'm going to send a letter of representation to the homeowner. After I send a letter of representation to the homeowner, I'm going to do research. My staff will do research. Who owns the house? So the house could be held in a trust. It could be owned by husband and wife. It could be owned by something called tenants by the entirety. I want to know that because when I file a lawsuit, I need to make sure that I name the proper people who may be responsible. And if the homeowner is in the wife's name only or the husband's name only, I need to know that. And I also need to know if the house is being rented. So if my client tells me that they were injured and they were visiting Armando, and I do an asset search on see who owns the house, and it's owned by Jessica, well, then I know that my client either is renting or doesn't have a homeowner's interest in the house.
Hello, Keith.
You guys there? Wow, that was a little bit of struggle.
That was a little bit of technical struggle there. Sorry about that.
So let's take a break here. I'll remind everyone what we were talking about. Go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself, Armando?
Hello, everybody. My name is Armando Gamboa. I'm with Texsana Bank, and my primary focus is residential lending throughout the country. We're a federally chartered bank, and we have outlets for first-time buyers, people that are looking to buy a home for the first time or just invest in real estate, whether it's a single-family home or multi-unit and some commercial stuff.
And spell the name of your bank in case someone who's viewing this in the future wants to reach out to you.
It's Texsana Bank, T-E-X-A, N as in Nancy, A.
Great. And he's a friend of the firm, and you can see him on our contacts in case you watch this. That's Armando Gamboa. So Armando, we pre-gamed this a little bit before our call. Tell us a little bit about what you would recommend a homeowner do to protect themselves so that if someone's injured in their house and that person hires Claim Your Justice, that I don't wind up taking their house from that person? Yeah,
so it's a great question, and in most cases, people that are buying a house for a first time or investing in another one, a lot of the times insurance companies are trying to win that deal or get the best possible price for the borrower. But I always recommend for them to be properly protected. So you have, like for example, us as a bank, we will not do a mortgage on any property that's not insured. And when I say insurance versus, any fire and hazard insurance that will be required to at least cover the value of our note. So that's number one. In other cases, you have flood insurance that tends to get a little expensive from time to time. So, when you put an offer on the property, it's always good to clarify if it's in a flood zone and so on. But in the majority of my cases with my customers, I always entice them to run that policy by their attorney because they already have attorney representation. So why not make sure that they're properly protected?
That's a good point. What I was telling before you logged on, you dialed on, I was saying that I generally see $100,000 homeowner policies for liability. And I see that because I know insurance agents want to make sure their clients are properly protected, but don't also want to expose their insurance agency to too many large claims. And the way you would limit that is to put a $100,000 policy on there. And I suggested that the homeowner ask their agent to up it to $250 or $300 because the dollar amount, the mortgage company is still protected, but the small dollar amount to add that extra level of protection to save their equity in the house. So I don't know, what's the standard limit of liability you see for your customers?
Yeah, in most first-time buyers, we're seeing the lowest, 100,000 protection.
Yeah.
And like you said, the amount of investment from the client side of things is minimal. Just, there's nothing like being overprotected, in my opinion. And what the funniest thing is that as people stay in this house for 5 or 10 years, they don't pay attention to the little things. So they're building all this equity on their home, but then they're still protected for the minimum.
That's an excellent point. So just to tie it up to what I was mentioning earlier, when you have, like Armando said, you're in a house for 10 years, you just the insurance company keeps renewing the policy. You may not take the time, that's the 15, 20 minutes that is necessary to review your limits of coverage, or you may not even know. So I'm telling you this particular presentation is for both the homeowner's protection as well as it's self-serving because the more insurance that's out there, and given my client's serious injury, the higher I can make a recovery for my client for their serious injuries and not be limited to, let's say, $100,000 where there's a small amount of equity in the house. Armando, what happens when you get a insurance company gets a policy, your customer gets an insurance policy? What if they don't make the premium payment?
So typically, if they're not properly insured, our bank will enforce our own, its own insurance to make sure that they're properly protected. And in most cases, it's like 3 times the cost.
Wow. Oh, so they call that force placed insurance.
Correct.
Right. Oh, look at who we have here.
Hello.
Wait a second. What time is it? It's 2:10. Some technical difficulties?
Yes.
Okay. So people may recognize Jessica. The good thing is I know we only have a few viewers here, but I know I've gotten comments post Facebook Live that other people have tuned in and watched it. Jessica, Armando and I pretty much covered the topics that we discussed for today.
Okay.
I want to think we're going on 10 minutes here. Jessica, do you have any questions that may be off script from what we talked about before we had this call?
Sorry, no.
Okay.
I was hoping to get here sooner, but.
So Jessica, the one suggestion I have for you, I know you have parents who live in the community. I would tell them to do 2 things. One is if they're ever looking for a mortgage, to reach out to Armando for a future purchase. Okay. And the second thing is let's take a look at their declaration page of their homeowners policy to make sure they have a sufficient limit that will protect them and whatever equity they have in the house. So everyone, this was a new technique we were trying to use to get more people involved from the community on our calls. I'm going to continue to do this. I'm sure I'll have Armando back in the future. Remember, for any serious injuries, for car, truck, motorcycle accidents, slip and falls, workers' compensation, you can reach out to us at claimyourjustice.com or at 847-434-3555. Armando, thank you for being on the call. I appreciate your time. Jessica will get you some classes on Facebook Live, how to join on the time. And we look forward to representing the people in the Facebook community when they're seriously injured. Thanks, everyone.
You guys.
Bye-bye.